So we're a good way into Black History Month. And I just wanted to share some of my thoughts about Black people, martial arts, and swords. So right now I have some footage playing of me using my windlass American saber, which is something I always wanted because my first sword, my first real sword, it's not my first sword, but my first real sword was the Thompson saber from Cold Steel. I'm a Cold Steel fan. And so I was like, I'll get the Thompson saber because, Lynn Thompson put his name on it. So obviously it's the best. And the Thompson saber is a really good sword, but it doesn't come in a left-handed version. And as a left-handed sword fighter, it kind of always bothered me that the guard is not facing the right way and that, the meat of my hand is basically exposed. So the windlass saber, the American saber, I always kind of wanted it just for the aspect of it, having a D guard or like a center guard on it. And so I can use it in either hand and, have the same level of less protection in the Thompson saber, but don't feel like it's mismatched. As I've been studying Black American martial arts, another aspect of the windlass saber came in the fact that when we look at Black people who use swords, so for example, Harriet Tubman famously carried, I think, a pistol, a sword, and a shotgun. And Nat Turner, the famous leader of one of the biggest slave rebellions in the United States, also carried a sword. And both of them were sabers of the type that the American Revolution saber by windlass is. And so I kind of felt a connection between these great people by purchasing this product and being able to play around with it. I do not study HEMA, and outside of just, watching videos and practicing with weapons that are associated with it, but I don't take any formal classes like I have with HAMA. And, it has a different feel to it, swinging it around compared to the Thompson, which is more balanced. It has a heavier hand guard, so it's a little bit, more controllable. The windlass saber really, it has a little bit less finesse, but it comes down really hard. And I really just like that because I like my weapons to be tip heavy, high point of balance because, I'm a Tacoba fighter most of the time. And so I appreciate that, but it was just interesting feeling the difference between the two sabers. They kind of have different personalities. And then going back to Black History Month, when we talk about Black people in America, there's always this sense of not having the right to defend yourself or Black people having arms being a bad thing. And so I find it interesting that between Harriet Tubman and Nat Turner, they both have these, D-guarded sabers that they chose. Now, in Nat Turner's case, he probably found a sword during the slave rebellion that he used. And swords are also, as a leader, swords are important because it identifies you, and symbolically everyone understands the sword as a symbol of authority or the symbol of a general or something. And so you could argue that in Nat Turner's case, he just found a sword that, he took with him during the rebellion. But Harriet Tubman was in Philadelphia, and I'm from Philadelphia. And Philadelphia back in the day actually was a major manufacturing hub of swords and firearms and all sorts of cool things that they don't do anymore, sadly, in modernity. And so her sword, she purchased. So even though with Nat Turner, it's kind of like, well, that might have been all he had on hand, Harriet Tubman purchased that sword kind of by preference. And so I find it an interesting connection that these two great Black leaders chose similar types of swords to use. But Yeah, so like just the overall thing of black people with weapons and just understanding that black people did fight for things, fight for freedom, fight for the country. And I'm kind of researching right now the Black American martial experience. So, a lot of it is intertwined with Americana. So, Bowie knife fights, fighting with straight razors, fighting with sabers, and things that we don't necessarily see as being part of the Black American story, but it is. And so I feel that connection when I swing around this sword in my backyard. Okay, so that's all I have for today, guys, and I hope you enjoy Black History Month and you learn something. All right, bye-bye.